gentlemen, as the British capture the position, the war goes on in the air. As we look up, we can see coming in to strafe the British positions, 2 German biplanes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, World War I was the first conflict that saw fighting in the air. When the war started in 1914, effective powered flight was just a few years old. But already the types of attack aircraft we are familiar with today were in service, such as reconnaissance aircraft, fighter aircraft, bombers and ground attack aircraft like these German Junkers CL-1s who had just strafed the British front line. Fortunately, a pair of British-built SE-5s have seen what's going on and they are manoeuvring in to engage them. Flight brought a new dimension to warfare. Most importantly, it allowed commanders to see what was going on behind the enemy lines, spotting troop concentrations and artillery positions. The need to stop this intelligence getting back to the enemy commanders led to the development of fighter aircraft, basically planes designed to attack and shoot down reconnaissance planes. Fighter planes generally carry forward-facing machine guns. This meant that pilots had to maneuver behind an opponent to get themselves into a firing position. And this complicated series of maneuvers is what we know as a dogfight. Spotting an enemy plane before he spots you gives you a significant advantage in air combat. Because of this, pilots were encouraged to attack from a higher altitude and out of the sun, where their dazzled opponents would find it hard to see them. Other types of plane were developed to carry a 2-man crew like these Junkers. The second crewman was an observer who could be used to look out for the enemy whilst the pilot focused on flying the plane. An observer was often armed with his own machine gun, which either faced backwards or was set in a rotating cupola. This increased the aircraft's field of fire and allowed him to engage an enemy that succeeded in getting into a position behind him. The British troops below will be looking up at their airborne allies with relief, but also with a little envy. Fighter pilots carried a great deal of dash and glamour, but flying was incredibly unsafe by modern standards. Pilots may have been out of the mud and guaranteed a hot meal and a warm bed at the end of the day, but their aircraft pushed the limits of technology and were very difficult to fly. Most World War I aircraft were made of canvas and wood to keep their weights down, and British pilots were never issued with parachutes. This was because the High Command unfairly felt that issuing them might encourage inexperienced pilots to jump at the first sign of trouble. In reality, a pilot's greatest fear was not being shot down, but the fear of burning to death in a stricken aircraft with no means of escape. As a result, many flyers carried a pistol with them or would jump to a certain depth from their burning aircraft. The average age of a World War I pilot was just 19 years old, and they had a life expectancy of just 2 weeks on the Western Front. The need to replace losses meant that pilots on all sides were given the most basic training before facing the enemy. A modern pilot must clock up to 45 hours flight time in order to earn a license. In 1914, if a pilot went to the front with 15 hours of flight time, he was considered experienced. But as the war went on, training vastly improved. So it's starting to look as though the British fighters are getting the better of the Junkers, one of which has started to trail smoke. They're now making